Welcome to another edition of the Corner Booth podcast for the Montreal Gazette here at the Snowden Deli. I'm Aaron Rand, along with Bill Brownstein of the Montreal Gazette, and our guest today, Dominique Ollivier. I don't think I have to tell you who Dominique Ollivier is. She's been in the news now for the past couple of weeks. And we're doing this today, Dominique. First of all, thank you for being here. We're doing this because my sense is you want a chance to explain what has gone on. I read the interview you did in La Presse suggesting that you really haven't had the opportunity to explain what happened. So let me go back to the beginning, if we can call it that. A couple of weeks ago, scandal breaks out over the time that you were head of the Office of Public Consultation in Montreal, $350 some odd oyster dinner, travel to different parts of the world, and the next thing you know, you resign. So let's start with that. You know, I know you're saying you've done nothing wrong, we don't know all the facts, then why resign?
I resigned because, as I said on my resignation speech, because to do the job of the president of the executive committee of the city of Montreal, when you're in charge of finances, when you're in charge of human resources, when you're in charge of governmental relations, you have to have a certain serenity to do the job. People have to have some confidence in you. And that's a bit what I sensed, is that 3 weeks ago, I was one of the most respected person in Montreal. And suddenly I was getting hate mail, I was getting racist comments, I was getting people that were asking me to leave without even being able to say exactly what was wrong. You know, everybody talked about that oyster dinner. I don't know if people really know this, that it was in 2016, happened once. And, you know, they did like a big magma with all the different facts and put it all out there for people to understand or not understand it. I don't know.
So you took this as a vendetta on a certain level because basically you were attacked for many reasons, but one of the things that people don't understand is what was the Office of Public Consultation doing in places like Mozambique? And I'd like you to explain that because I still get asked that. I mean, this is a Montreal based office, and what's going on with the travel and all the rest?
Okay. The travel is actually what you have to understand. The first thing is that a lot of people said that it started with me coming to the office, which is totally not true. And I have all the documentation that I put at the Commission on Finance last week to explain that. They started actually in 2003 with the mayor, the then mayor, Mr. Tremblay, asking the office to join 3 different networks. One of them was the OIDP, which we were in Mozambique for. The other one was AIP2, which is the Association of International Public Participation. And the third one was the Metropolis, saying that we could share the experiments and the expertise that we have in Montreal within those 3 networks. So people were going every year to those places. When I came in, Mayor Coder at that point had asked to be the president for 1 year of the OIDP. And that's the letter that I put forward, saying we would love to have the presidency because it's the 375th birthday of Montreal, and we have one expertise that's extraordinary, and it's the OCPM, and they're already active in your network, so we would like to have the presidency. So we went to have the passation of the presidency from Mozambique, who had
for
it that
Denis Coderre.
year,
Yeah, but
for Denis Coderre, and us to get it for the next year.
and yet it was Denis Coderre who just last week took shots at you for doing this. I don't get that.
Bill, I guess that he forgot, but I still have the letter. If you want to see it, I brought it today because people don't believe me when I said that, and we found the letter back saying that Denis Coderre signed and sent to the people, saying we will be honored to have the presidency of that. And he's saying the plus value, the added value of us having the presidency is that we're going to be able to share that expertise with all of North America.
Okay, I know
And yet he's the one who said go to Mozambique for safaris, which you took.
Exactly.
You have said in an interview that I read as well that really the problem here is more with the administration of the, or at least with the administration of the city's finance department or the auditor general, whatever that job would be, in terms of administration. Now, after you resigned,
Yes.
it came out a few days later that back in 2017, that office let you know when you submitted an expense report that there were some inconsistencies there. You said you answered that letter, nothing ever happened. What was that?
But that's again something that I find interesting, because I explained all of that to the journalists that came and saw me, and nobody asked how come they knew there was a 2017 report, because I told them. I said the only time that we had a red flag was in 2017 when the Auditor General, and it's really a red flag because she approved all our expenses, but she says some expenses might seem, the exact sentence is surprenant. You know, I don't know, how do you say that in English? Surprising. She says, so it would be nice if you had a policy that would explain it better. But it's a recommendation. It's not saying, no, this doesn't work. And the second thing that she said in that report is that in terms of governance, it doesn't seem healthy to her that all that power is into the hand of one person. But that's the way the law is written.
But you were that person.
And I was that person, but she wasn't talking about my expenses. She was talking in general. She says, you have a treasurer, which is the treasurer of the city. So the treasurer of the city should meet with you more regularly, should maybe approve some of the expenses. And what we said is that we explained to her what the law said, basically the charter of the city of Montreal that defines the OCPM and how it works. And we said, we have to be able to maintain that independency, because one of the things that we have to remember is that when Mayor Bourque was there, he totally trashed the Department of Public Participation, saying it wasn't necessary. So when they did one city, one island, if you remember, one of the conditions was that the civil society put was that we had a mechanism that was independent of political influences so that it could do.
So I'm sorry, I want to just touch on that. So you said the idea of, you want to maintain that independence, you felt that was important. Yet at the same time, nothing changed from that time to now, right?
Nothing changed. And one of the things, we said we wanted to maintain that independence, but we said we agreed that we could have a more robust way of controlling expenses. But that was on the hand of the city. So when the Auditor General sends us this report and we send her the answer, there's two parts in there. And at that point, I remember when I came in office, and I'm very sorry if you're listening, Yves Courchain, which was the treasurer at that time, I said, oh, it's nice to meet you. I've never met you in 7 years that I was in my...
That's what I was going to bring up. You were there 7 years, 2014.
I was there 7 years and 2 months, yeah.
2000 till 2021. Now, you have mentioned in the past, I hadn't heard this reason, that you ran a surplus for 7 years while you were there.
No, not for 7 years. 3 times in the 7 years that I was there, we sent back a surplus to the city. Because that's the way it works. We're not supposed to have money to just play with. We're supposed to have money so we can do our consultation and we can do the different mandates that we have. And if we have too much, we send it back. 1 year we sent back $200,000. Another year we sent back 1,700 and something. But
perception is a big part of what you're now living through, right? People look at this, they're judging you, and I know that's something that bothers you because you've said you did nothing wrong. But then people look at the fact that, first of all, the OCPM has offices in Cour Montreal. That's $270,000 in rent a year.
It was already there when I came in.
Okay. 70,000, I forgot what the total was, eating out at Chez Alexandre on a regular basis
that
as well.
Wasn't
So
me.
explain that.
That wasn't me. And I never authorized stuff like that. People said, oh, they eat. What they did is that they took the current administration and they took my 7 years, mixed it together, and said, this is what the head of the OCPM are doing. Yes, of course, I won't lie. I did go to maybe once a year to different tables that looked more expensive. For example, I went to the Europea, which people are talking about, or to Damas. But it was always with international partners that came to Montreal for a reason or another. And the same way when we go there, they take us out. When they come here, we take them out. But even if we look at that, for example, I will have a bill, at the Europea, I have a bill of $81 I mean, we weren't drinking wine and sipping champagne and eating oysters.
So you felt that was unfair.
That is very unfair.
But more to the point, now you're saying, well, you were being thrown under the bus, but your successor, Madame Beaulieu, she's the one who, like in her brief period there, she's been running up bills at Alexandre, getting headphones, buying color TVs, giving tickets to opera.
We were
and hockey
sitting on the
games.
same chairs for 20 years
And-
that we got
and all
from
the rest.
MUC. Yeah.
But throwing you under the bus at the same time.
Yes,
and throwing
yes,
me under the bus.
exactly.
Yes.
So how does that happen?
I have no idea. You go ask her. Personally, I think that everybody's trying to kind of save face or whatever, or try to justify.
But she's
what is
blaming
being
you
done.
for her
But
lifestyle.
She says she took over. When she took over, it was a mess.
Yeah.
that's what she says. But again, I will ask the question. If you look at the way we ran the OCPM, we had the same budget. She has a higher budget than ours. You know, only once in the 7 years that I was there, we got $2-3 million. We usually went around 1.7, 1.8 million dollars and sending surplus back. Once we had 10 consultation on the same year, and we had big things, so we went up to 3 million. But at the same time, I mean, you can look at everything that I did, and that's what bothers me. You know, whatever happens to me, it doesn't matter really. Because I think that when you go into politics, you go into politics to achieve a goal, and I was following that goal. And my goal was to give the people of Montreal, the city, that they had been talking to me in all those consultations while I was there at the OCPM. And at this point, you know, what I find sad is that people took a credit card bill, they looked at a credit card bill for 9 years, and they decided this was what defined the work that we did.
The Corner Booth podcast is brought to you in part by the Snowden Delicatessen, where we are. 75 years in business, the hub of Montreal's greatest smoked meat, plus carnotzel, potato latkes, and the famous Snowden Deli party sandwiches. That's the Snowden Delicatessen. So let me ask you this. People have now said, the mayor, actually on Tout le Monde Parle just a few days ago, said she has lost confidence. She used to talk about Isabelle Beaulieu, but in essence said the same thing about you. When you decided to resign, to go back to the original question, what had been your discussions with Valérie Plante at that time?
I had none. I offered her my resignation. At some point, I received some very threatening mail, and one that said, I hope that UPAC comes to your house and that you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. And I realized, I say, I'm going in 3 days to present a budget to people that think that UPAC should come into my house and I should be in prison for the rest of my life. For doing what? Having one oyster dinner 8 years ago in another job.
Which you've repaid, you said?
Which I've repaid, and not only repaid, I repaid in dollars of today. So that 300 and something dollar, I put the interest on, and I made a check before I left of 400 and something dollars.
Let me ask you something. You're no longer obviously the chair of the executive committee, but you're still involved on certain. You're a city councillor in Rosemount.
Yeah.
Do you have other functions within the city as well?
I kept my seat at the CMM because
Right.
we were in the middle. Because if you can remember, I was in charge of government relations, and we have some very big issues at this point. But I don't know what the future will hold. At this point, it was pointless, I would say, to remove me because I wasn't the problem. But in the public face, I can understand that people lost confidence in the institution.
So if people have lost confidence in the court of public opinion, as we say, some will look and say, okay, you're no longer the head, obviously, of the OCPM. You haven't had that job. You gave up your seat on the executive council. But you're still involved politically, and they say they can't necessarily trust someone after what happened to even be involved politically.
I would say, you know why I stay as councillor? I mean, whatever happened at the CMM, it's not my decision to make. But as a city councillor, I've received that one letter from that woman that says, I'm a single parent. Sometimes it's difficult for me to make ends meet. Maybe I eat once a day so I can take care of my daughter. But she says, I appreciate the way you face the music. I appreciate the responsibility that you took, and I would like to say that you still have my confidence. And when I received that letter, and I'm still talking about it, and I get goosebumps, I said, that's the person I'm working for. So
I'd like-
she's the one who has to take the confidence away.
I'd like to bring it to another level. As in your role as with the Office of the Public, it shocked me on a certain level. The biggest consultation that the Office of Public Consultation did was with the Mount Royal, with closing off of whether or
Yeah.
not this communion should be closed off, and overwhelmingly your council, your commission decided that the public really recommended, and that's great. And so was the situation. Then all of a sudden, Mayor Plante announced that, well, forget that, and beginning 2027, there's going to be construction, and it will be closed off. Half of the mountain will be closed off to traffic. What was your thoughts on that? What were your thoughts on that when suddenly you're part of the city administration? And you were so involved on the other side.
I'd say two things. First of all, remember that as the OCPM, we're a neutral third party. So we're not on one side or the other
Right.
one.
No, I understand.
We take a picture and we say, at this point, this seems to us to be the best course of action to the elected people that have to make their decision. I'd like to remind everybody, because everybody seems to have forgotten that they took an OCPM report that was 10 years before that said that they should be the two dead ends.
Right.
And they implemented that. And then what people were telling me is that doesn't matter what happened 10 years ago, we have to do what's going to happen today. And now, 5 years later, we're coming back with a different decision. And people are telling me, yeah, but we said 5 years ago that we didn't want that. Yeah, but 15 years ago, people said they wanted that. So, you have to understand how the mechanism works. As far as the decision, one of the things that to me is interesting is that everybody takes the resolution. If you take that says we should maintain traffic throughout. If you take just the paragraph before, and I entice people to go and do that, the paragraph before says it could be imaginable that there would be less transit on the mountain, but the conditions would have to be there. More accessibility, more public transit, and there's a couple of things that are saying. They're saying in absence of that, we think that we should leave the traffic away. So one of the things that I argued on my side was, can you guarantee that those conditions that we wrote in that report back then will be there in 2027?
Yes, but if there were another consultation, what do you think the reaction would be from the public? Don't you think that they might again be against the closing? I'm just taking a wild guess.
They might be against the closing. They might. I think there might be more people for it because there's a lot of people that spoke up also on the other side. But one of the things you have to understand is that a public consultation is not a referendum.
Right.
No.
And I understand the part about you don't enact anything that comes from it. You recommend to the city.
Exactly.
But you're
In the wake
independent,
of this,
yeah.
though, part of what we're hearing from people is, in the wake of, if we call it a scandal, why do we even need
Yes.
an Office of Public Consultation if the results are not necessarily going to be
I'm
followed?
going to say something that's not popular and that nobody wants to hear. But I went on the CJAD in March because we had some civil servants that were saying we're the victim of blatant racism. I'd like to remind people that 26,000 people in Montreal asked for a consultation on racism and systemic discrimination. Came out of there 32 recommendations that have been implemented, one of them that is going to be adopted this afternoon, that changed totally the way we are looking within the city at those things. I would like to say that when we had a consultation on Parc Jean Drapeau, when Mayor Coderre again had cut 10,000 trees to be able to do that
Yes.
state amphitheater that only works like a couple of weeks a year.
Yeah.
People came out and said in a public consultation, we don't want that. This is not, we don't believe that it should be
Okay.
apart
So you're
from
making
the
a good,
private
you're making a
industry.
fair case for why there should be an Office
Yeah.
for Public Consultation. I would ask you then, given the fact that you are making that case, what needs to change in that office?
I think that what I'd like to say, and that's what I'd like to tell people, a lot of people have been saying, how come she doesn't say she's sorry? What I'm saying is that I agree there was an appearance for that oyster dinner, and by the way, it's the only one that people keep coming back to, because if they look at the rest, under my presidency, there might have been some questionable choices, but the fact is that they were into the norms that we had at that time. And I think that if you have a problem with the norms, we should change the norms. We should decide. I think it's an opportunity to decide, okay, what's acceptable for the Office de Consultation Publique and what's not. Do they need an expense account? Maybe they don't. Maybe we should just, the charter of the city says that the commissionaries have the right to have their mail reimbursed. Maybe we should just say, okay, instead of paying them $325 a day, we're going to pay them $350 a day and no more reimbursement. This is the real issue that has to be addressed at this point. Like I said, in our annual report, every year, all the travels were listed. How come none of the commission of the presidency that hears the annual report or the Commission of Finance, how come nobody asked the question, how much of your budget is dedicated to traveling? Or why are you traveling so much? They would say, oh, good job, Mrs. Ollivier. Keep going, keep going. It's good. You're our pride. Keep going.
When you resign, people will look at that and say, people who did nothing wrong or think they did nothing wrong don't resign. What's your answer to that?
My answer again is the fact that I'm the one that was in charge of the finance, and people were putting my skills as a finance person in doubt. There wasn't the calmness and the openness to receive whatever it is that I had to say anymore. Made my job impossible, and that's why I said I'm going to resign.
You also spent, I'm sorry, you spent a fair amount of time during your resignation speech bringing up what you brought up earlier today, which was social media reaction. You got very nasty emails, some threatening emails that you've already discussed. If that had not been the case, if that had not been a factor, would you have stayed?
I would probably have stayed if that had not been the case, but I would still have went to the Finance Commission and defended my
record.
How do you say record?
Record.
Well, as head of the OCPM, this is the thing I am most proud of in my life, because we went from having consultation with a couple of hundred people to consultation that could reach thousands of people, and I can't say I'm sorry for that.
So what's your future?
I don't know. It doesn't matter.
No,
you know what I find funny is that people have been sending a lot of hate to me, basically out of that. But I'd like to ask the question, just to put it out there: if it was such a cushiony job, that I had such a nice expense account, and I was traveling all the world on taxpayers' money, which was not the case, and I posited the document for that. Why would I have went to a job that had no expense account, that I didn't travel at all, and I worked 70 hours a week? I did it because I love Montrealers. I love my city. I love the people in the city. And that woman that I was talking to you about, that single woman, single parent, that was me. That was me living here in NDG 40 years ago. And that's the city that I wanted to bring. I wanted to bring a city that was fairer to people, a city that was better ran, a city that we could all be confident in. They decided I'm not worthy of doing it.
Will you continue as being a city councillor?
I will continue as long as the people in Rosemont Petite Patrie say that, please, Mrs. Ollivier, stay there. The day that they say, no, we don't believe
that's why we have
can
elections, right?
represent us. Yeah, but even before the election, I mean, if there were so many people that would tell me, at this point, it's the contrary. People are saying, we love the way you're standing up for yourself. I think you can stand up for us the same way. And we hope you're going to stand up for us.
I want to go back to
the same way.
something you just said, and we're going to run out of time. The idea of why would you leave that cushy job, as you described it, to take on the job at the Executive Council? So in my mind, I think you've become, by taking on that job, the second most powerful municipal politician in the city. That in and of itself is pretty heady, makes you very powerful. Who knows? That would be something. Why would you never take a job like that if the job had been offered to you? Did you have aspirations at one point to become mayor or run for mayor?
No, not at all. As I said, I did that because I believe in my city, I believe in fairness, I believe in equality for all the citizens, and this is what I wanted to bring. I've never had a career plan in my life. This is the third time that politics treats me badly. It's no secret that I was an independentist, and I had to go. At some point, I had to stand up for what I believed in. That's what I'm known for. I stand up for what I believe in.
As we wrap up, you said people wondered why you hadn't said you're sorry. So you have an opportunity now for people watching this, hearing your story. What is it you want people to understand? Why you don't say you're sorry, that you did nothing wrong, it's not your fault? What do you want to say?
I'm not saying it's not my fault, because I think that judgment is always your fault, and I take in responsibility for that. For example, I understand how, looking at it today, it might seem not normal to have had that dinner that we had in Paris while we were on a mission because of the people that were there. And for that, I'm very sorry, and that's why I said I paid it back, because I understand why people are angry, and I understand what this sends as a message. But one of the things that for me is important, before you throw the stone, who has seen the entire data? Who has asked the entire questions? If you look only at your credit card bill, even personally, without thinking about an institution, and you see the number of times that you went to the SAQ, for example, does that make you an alcoholic? No. It depends on the context. Maybe, but it depends on the context. And it's the only thing that I would like people to remember out of this, is that context is everything, and you have to make sure. You're entitled to your judgment, but you have to make sure that the context is all there.
You've been treated unfairly?
It's not for me to answer that question. For me, I came into politics because I wanted to pursue a dream for my people. People said, we don't believe in you anymore because of what you did in a previous job, although nobody could say that I did anything wrong in the 2 years that I was there. And I took action. After that, people will see if I been treated fairly or not. It's for, I think, each individual to judge. What I can say is that I took my responsibility.
I just want to ask today, you mentioned there's a city council meeting today.
Yeah.
Isabelle Beaulieu may end up losing her job by the end of the day as well. A, how you would feel if that happened, and secondly, what happens? The city is recommending that the Office of Consultation be put under trusteeship for now. How does that make you feel?
I'm perplexed, I would say. But first of all, I think that Isabelle has to answer for her action the same way I did. And she said she would, so good for her, I hope. Definitely the trust into the institution is broken, so we have to make changes. Now, how does that trusteeship work? I have no idea. I'm looking at the law, and I'm looking at the situation, and I can't imagine how it's going to work. But it's no longer my department, like they say in that.
The mayor seems to have your back. Mayor Plante seems to still be a firm believer. Does that help?
With what?
Well, in terms of in terms of the way you feel you've been treated. I mean, you pointed out a lot of.
She had nice things to say about you at the end of the day.
I hope so. We've been collaborators for 2 years, and after all, she saw something in me when she came and asked me to leave the OCPM to go there. And I hope that I lived up to that expectation.
The point is that there are people who still back you, like the mayor, and other people.
There's lots of people that back me, but one of the things that I said to them, even yesterday, I had like three MNAs and 2 MPs and 1 minister write to me and say, Dominique, there's nobody who knows you that believes that. Hang tough. Okay, I'm gonna hang tough. But at some point, I would expect people to say, and that's what I told them, it's very nice to have all that private encouragement, but who's gonna stand up? I'm standing up for myself. Who's going to stand up for the institution? Who's going to stand up for saying people should not be treated that way? She was into a norm, and there's no way we can bring up charges against her. I find this is what I find mind-boggling, is that people are saying you should be in prison. For what? For what? And that's what makes me look, they say it makes me look, comment est-ce qu'on dit? In English.
En français.
Il dit,
En français, quoi.
Oh, ouais.
Yeah, but even en français, je cherche le mot. it makes me look like I'm not sorry, and it makes me look like I look down on people, basically. And not at all. All I'm saying is that the problem was the norm. I had $4,000 of discretionary funds that I worked within that frame all the time, used them. Yes, I did use it. And it was done. But there was no fraud, there was no theft, there was no return of money. Okay. So I would like somebody, and I have not heard anybody but me say that. I would like somebody to say that.
Well, what I find mind-boggling in all of this is there's so much wastage of like public money over the years. I mean, the mayor just revealed herself how they spent an awful lot of money on wine in Vienna.
And that's another story.
And that's a whole other. But the point being, it on some levels it is small change, and on another level, I can see where you could think that, well, is it because I'm a woman? Is it because I'm black? Is this the reason it's such an outrage? And there is something to that, probably on another level.
I want to thank you so much for coming. I know this is not easy.
The coffee's good.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm waiting for the book to come out. I'm sure that's going to happen.
I don't think this is the end, obviously, of the story. And I understand when you say, look, this is what people are accusing me of. I want the whole story to come out. And at some point, let's hope it will. I thank you so much for being with us.
My
Dominique
pleasure.
Ollivier.
Thank you for inviting me.
That wraps up another edition of the Corner Booth here from the Stone Deli. We'll see you again soon.